The National Electoral Council of Venezuela reported a historic win of the Great Patriotic Poll at the regional and legislative elections. The government of Colombia reached a deal with the national coordinator of the Bolivarian Army, one of the dissidents of the extinct FARC, to advance towards the signing of a peace agreement. And on Sunday, United States President Donald Trump confirmed that he would pause the announced 50% tariffs on European countries until July 9. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Venezuela, following the legislative and regional elections, the Great Patriotic Poll Simón Bolívar won more than 80% of the votes for the National Assembly and 99% of the governorships. With a turnout of 42.63% of voters, the Great Patriotic Poll obtained 4,552,484 votes for the National Assembly, which represents 82.68% of the total votes. Democratic Alliance obtained 6.25% of the overall ballots. Alianza Única obtained 5.18% of the votes, while Fuerza Vecinal won 2.57%. In this context, the Vice President of the National Electoral Council, Carlos Quintero, affirmed the country had experienced a new moment of sovereignty and that the voting results constitute a civic and democratic expression of the Venezuelan people.
With the transmission of the voting machines corresponding to 93.01% of the polling stations, and a participation of 42.63% of the active voters, we have that for the position of deputies and deputies of national allocation list, the alliance of the Great Patriotic Poll obtains 4,553,484 votes, corresponding to 82.68% of the total votes.
484 votos, que corresponde al 82,68% del total de los votos.
The Democratic Alliance obtains 344,422 votes, corresponding to 6.25% of the total votes.
5% del total de los votos. La Alianza UNTC Única obtiene 285,000.
The UNTC Única Alliance obtained 285,500 votes, corresponding to 18% of the total votes. The Fuerza Vecinal Alliance obtained 141,566 votes, corresponding to 2.57% of the total votes. Other valid and invalid votes obtained 182,351 votes, corresponding to 3.31% of the total votes.
The President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, stated that the democratic process of this May 25th demonstrated the firm support of the Venezuelan people to the Bolivarian Revolution, despite the attempts of the fascist far right to generate violence and destabilization.
After blockades, criminal sanctions, fascism and violence, today the Bolivarian Revolution has demonstrated that it is more valid than ever, stronger than ever. Today we have shown the power of Chavismo, the Bolivarianism of the 21st century. It is not just anything, what this people have achieved, resisting, persevering, creating solutions, innovating, and moving forward with a new project.
The Venezuelan president informed that terrorist groups that had the intention of attacking officials and political and social leaders of the Bolivarian Revolution were neutralized.
I told Diosdado that on Tuesday he will give a press conference with details so that he can explain the whole plan of violence that we could unveil and defeat before it was activated against the electoral centers, against the refineries, against the guri, against the military barracks. We have obtained at least 20 cell phones that are talking and singing better than Pavarotti, notebooks and documents in handwriting that cannot be denied of the terrorists that we have captured from the most renowned downwards with their handwriting, drawing the organization chart of all those involved, and the objective to try to kill political leaders.
Desde el más renombrado hacia abajo, con puño y letra de ellos, dibujando el organigrama de todos los involucrados y el objetivo para tratar
military leaders, police leaders, to try to kill some of the opposition leaders that registered for the elections. But thanks to the popular military fusion, to the strategic intelligence of the Bolivarian Revolution, we managed to capture them and neutralize the plan of violence, and the elections have been in peace and calm, without any new developments.
tranquilas.
Also, President Nicolás Maduro asserted that the population of the newly elected governor of Guayana Esequiba, Neil Villamizar, will have all the budgetary support of the Bolivarian government.
Se hizo la ley orgánica del Esequibo.
The organic law of Esequibo was passed, and the people today, being the dawn of May 26, 2025, Esequibo has a governor, Admiral Villamizar. And this governor elected by the people will have all the budgetary support, because the people of the Esequibo earned it, so that the people of the Esequibo have all the rights, as the people of Venezuela.
Porque el pueblo del Esequibo se lo ganó, para que el pueblo del Esequibo tenga todos los derechos como pueblo de Venezuela.
They also elected their deputies to the National Assembly. That means that we are going to see in the National Assembly deputies of the Esequibo, and they also elected their Legislative Council. So a peaceful day, election number 32, and the Bolivarian victory number 30 in this new and beautiful history of the Bolivarian Revolution of the 21st century.
Historia nueva y hermosa de la Revolución Bolivariana del siglo XX.
We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. We will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The government of Colombia reached a deal with the national coordinator of the Bolivarian Army, one of the dissidents of the extinct FARC, to advance towards the signing of a peace agreement. The head of the government delegation, Armando Novoa, reported that although the parties have had to face complex moments, there is a will for peace. For his part, the head of the negotiating team, Jose Vicente Lesmes, also known as Walter Mendoza, assured that although confidence in the peace process had been lost, the current commitments can help to recover it completely. Under this framework, the government announced the creation of a temporary location zone in the departments of Nariño and Putumayo for 120 members of this armed group. With this important agreement, the fifth cycle of these dialogues concluded after 11 months. Representatives of indigenous peoples of Latin America met for 3 days in the Ecuadorian Amazon to coordinate efforts and initiatives in defense of life. The world's largest tropical rainforest served as the setting for this initiative, in which they have agreed to prevent the exploitation of natural resources in their territories. They affirm that it is the indigenous peoples who have given their lives to the struggle to preserve water and land and all the natural resources of the planet. At the meeting, they also questioned the conferences of the parties promoted by the United Nations organization, stating that they do not make decisions based on rights. They also criticized the contempt of the states in the face of the sentences to protect the rights of their peoples. And the International Committee for the Freedom of Jorge Glass has written to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. The letter, signed by more than 80 people, expresses deep concern about the situation of Ecuador's former vice president. In the document, they denounced the fact that he has faced an environment marked by extreme violence and state negligence since his transfer to the penitentiary center in April 2024. They recall that Glass was granted diplomatic asylum by the Mexican government, but this was rejected, a fact that they catalog as political criminalization. Against this backdrop, Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa has repeatedly refused to grant Glass safe passage. Notably, even the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, attended Glass' inauguration in an attempt to negotiate a humanitarian solution. And in El Salvador, the documentary In Cold Blood was presented, a journalistic production that tells the story of the execution of 4 Dutch journalists murdered by the army during the Civil War. Roberto Hugo Presa with the details.
A sangre fría. Es una investigación que registra las últimas
In Cold Blood is an investigation that records the last hours of the 4 Dutch journalists ambushed by the army on March 17, 1982. The chronicle recreates the journey of the ICOM network journalists, who were guided to a camp by 4 guerrillas, who together with the journalists were killed in an ambush by the military command in this zone, in the north of the country. I was only 14 years old, but I remember that the population learned about that abominable crime committed by the military.
La Plaza de Dulce Nombre de María, cerca de la
The
zona
Plaza de Dulce Nombre de Maria, near the area where they were machine-gunned, was the scene of the screening of the documentary that seeks to raise awareness among the population and the new generations in order to keep the historical memory alive and guarantee non-repetition.
El que está llamado a repetir, a olvidar la
He
historia.
who is called to repeat, to forget history, repeats it again, and in Chalatenango, when you talk to the people, nobody wants to repeat any historical event of the war.
Ningún acontecimiento histórico de la guerra.
Estas imágenes recuerdan a quienes estuvieron
These images remind those who were involved in the war that there are still many open wounds.
¿Hay heridas abiertas de la guerra, Matías?
Pues la hay. ¿verdad?
Well, there are open wounds, yes there are, and those, let's say, can be closed by knowing the truth, right? Justice and compensate then, these damages.
Y resarcir, pues, ¿verdad? Esos daños.
Can you give me some more information?
Por el crimen de los periodistas holandeses.
For the crime committed against the Dutch journalists, 3 high-ranking military chiefs are being prosecuted and will face trial on June 3rd. A historic trial against impunity in El Salvador, because this is a case that is consigned in the report of the Truth Commission in the United Nations. This is one of the 32 cases. It is also a trial against high-ranking military commanders. In other words, they are not soldiers, they are not other types of officers, they are high-ranking military commanders who directed the war in this country, which was called the warlords before.
Sobre este caso también se publicó el libro.
The book La Emboscada was also published on this case, which together with the documentary aims to promote the right to truth, justice, and reparation, since, according to the promoters, it is not possible that oblivion and impunity continue to prevail.
La proyección de este documental se realiza en
The
diferentes.
screening of this documentary is being carried out in different parts of the country with the idea of creating awareness, and also so that the historical memory does not die.
Roberto Hugo Presa, TeleSUR, Chalatenango, El Salvador.
And in Chile, a tornado shook the city of Puerto Varas with winds of between 140 and 180 kilometers per hour, which caused material damage in the region. So far, authorities have reported no fatalities or injuries. However, the weather phenomenon left dozens of families homeless, and more than 10,000 people have been affected by the lack of power in their homes. For its part, the Chilean Meteorological Department issued an alarm that includes 3 regions, Araucanía, Los Rios, and Los Lagos, due to the probable development of tornadoes and waterspouts. Authorities informed that emergency committees were activated to coordinate assistance to victims and to restore power. We have a second short break coming up before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final break, I'm going to be right back with more. Welcome back. On Sunday, United States President Donald Trump confirmed that he would post the threatened 50% tariffs on European countries until July 9th. The decision was informed on Sunday by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who took to social media to unveil she had spoken with the U.S. head of state and secured the delay to give the two sides more time to negotiate. The European leader described the exchange as a good, fun conversation, but avoided mentioning that they are simply returning to the previous timetable due to the lack of progress in negotiations. Brussels and Washington have been locked in negotiations in a bid to avert an all-out transatlantic trade war after Trump's tariff threat on Friday raised the stakes when he warned he would impose 50% levies on all of the bloc's imports into the U.S. In a statement, the International Committee of the Red Cross condemned the death of two of its employees who were attacked at home in Han Yunis, the southern Gaza Strip, last Friday. This organization is shocked and distressed by the murders of Ibrahim Eid, an explosive treatment agent, and Ahmed Abu Hilal, a security guard at Rafah Hospital. The assassination of these two individuals leaves a great void and is a loss for humanitarian assistance. We reiterate our call for an immediate ceasefire and reaffirm our commitment to the Palestinian civilians. The armed forces of Yemen report that military operations were carried out against the Zionist regime of Israel in response to the aggressions of the entity against the Palestinian city of Gaza. According to the armed forces, the attacks targeted the Ben Gurion International Airport in Israel and succeeded in disrupting air traffic, causing the temporary suspension of takeoffs and landings. It should be noted that Yemen is carrying out a maritime blockade against Israeli ships in the Red Sea until the blockade on Gaza is lifted and the conflict ends. And this Sunday, thousands gather at La Place de la République in Paris to demand an end to the Israeli genocide against Gaza. Demonstrators rallied under the slogan "Stop the Genocide," condemning the indiscriminate violence perpetrated by Benjamin Netanyahu's government against the Palestinian people. Europe has experienced a week of intense mobilizations coinciding with the first expressions of condemnation by some regional governments, allies or accomplices of Tel Aviv. The urgent demands are centered on a ceasefire and entry of humanitarian aid without restrictions. And the Spanish Foreign Ministry reiterated its refusal to sell arms to Israel. It also called for sanctions against Israel and demanded unrestricted access to Gaza. In this sense, it condemned the repeated Israeli violations of human rights in Palestine and asked the European Union to suspend the association agreement with Israel. The entity also stated that Spain will put on the table the possibility of sanctioning Israel for its military operation in Gaza. And in Spain, more than 30,000 people belonging to social organizations and communities carried out a massive mobilization in Madrid against the public health policies imposed by the regional government. The protest called by the platform of neighbors of the neighborhoods and towns of the community of Madrid was carried out as a demonstration of the discontent of the population with the process of privatization and destruction of the public health system. Demonstrators denounced the delays in primary care since at least 1 million people are on the waiting list to be seen, and tens of thousands of children have not been assigned a pediatrician, in addition to the overload of health personnel. In this regard, the president of the organizing platform, Ricardo Chacon, stressed that privatizations are not for the benefit of patients, but for private economic interests. And in India, authorities report the sinking of a hazardous cargo container ship with 24 people on board off the country's southwest coast. According to the Ministry of Defense, all the crew members were rescued by the authorities. They also detailed that the vessel, which had left from the port of Vishinjam for the city of Cochin, was carrying 640 containers, including 13 with dangerous cargo and 12 with calcium carbide. It also contained 93 tons of diesel and about 400 tons of fuel oil. The Coast Guard reported that so far no oil spill has been reported. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.